You almost missed it. 3 hacks that will change your life. You wish you knew this 10 years ago. Have you ever heard any of these sorts of introductions to a video or to a reel or something like that? Have you ever heard those? We are told that if you would like to go viral, which I realize is all of our primary objective, but if you are going to go viral, what you must do is invite, don't inform. And so here's what informing looks like. It looks like, hello everyone, my name is Peter, and I'm here today to talk to you about this. But invitation makes you respond with like, oh no, this is for me. So you almost missed it. It's your reason for living. Did you know that? And with these, short little ideas, you too can go viral and be an internet sensation. John Pearson, I'm looking at you. You need to incorporate this right away. There you are. I know he's running out right now with his phone to do this. There's this guy named Rob Clark. And Rob Clark, he used to be a pastor, and then he wrote a book called 5 Billion Views. And he has shot a number of videos. It was 5 billion views. He's gone viral many times over. And he wrote this book instructing people how to do this stuff and how to get noticed. And you know what his shtick is? He and his wife and their 3 kids are exceptionally tall. That's it, folks. They're tall. The tallest one is well over 7 feet tall. When you see him, you go, wow, he's tall. And you might think, well, who cares? I mean, once you've seen it, that doesn't matter. But there are 5 billion views on his TikTok channel of people going, I need to watch this. This is so cool. I need to see this. And in his book, 5 Billion Views, he talks about the method of doing that. What I want to say is Jesus invented that. And I don't mean in any kind of fancy wordsmithy kind of way, Jesus invented the world and Rob is part of the world and therefore Jesus invented that. I don't mean that. I mean Jesus invented that method and we almost missed it. Yeah, I know, I can hear your wow. Just take a minute and let it settle on you. Matthew chapter 4, verses 18 to 22. One day, as Jesus was walking along the shore of the Sea of Galilee, he saw 2 brothers, Simon, also called Peter, we're going to focus on him today, and Andrew, Peter's brother, Simon's brother, throwing a net into the water, for they fished for a living. These people are professional fishermen. Now, there is a friend of mine in this room right now who would love nothing more than to spend his life fishing. Daryl. But we're going to talk about fishing as not the objective. So you're going to have to adjust for that, okay? You ready? You can do that? Fishing is good. No one has a problem with fishing, but that's just not what we're doing today. They fished for a living. They were professional fishermen. They know how to fish. They know where to get fish. They know where to go, where not to go, because there are no fish there. They ate because of their work catching fish. They ate fish, but they also sold fish and got money to eat other things. They fished for a living. Jesus called out to them, and he said this. He did not say, hello, my name is Jesus, and I have something that I am about to teach you. He said, come follow me, and I will show you how to fish for people. He said, stop fishing, you professional fishermen, and follow me, and come catch not fish, but people. And they left their nets at once and followed him. This is written by Matthew, not by Peter. This is something that he observed and he heard the story about later, and then he wrote it down. They stood up, well, they paddled the boat in, got out of the boat, and they followed Jesus. And they walked away. In the moment, they walked away from their livelihood. Now, here's the next thing I need you to hold on to. We are about to read many times over where Peter and his brothers and others also, following Jesus, also continued to fish. Now that's important because what we're talking about today is calling. And my fear is that you have heard a number of people talk to you about calling, and the conversation went like this. You have to quit everything that there is in your life. Quit it all. Quit everything in order to follow Jesus. That is not what this story says. The following of Jesus, literally, the disciples would follow Jesus so closely that the dirt that he kicked up as he walked down dirt roads would get on their clothing. They were there, he was the teacher, and he was teaching them, and they were learning. But they also continued to fish. And here's why this is important. For some of us, our calling means stop what you're doing, change your career, and become something different. But for some of us, it means stop fishing right now, come follow me, but when the time is right, I'm sending you back into the boats. And your story is going to fall in here somewhere. It's going to fall somewhere. So let's keep reading. A little farther up the shore, he saw two other brothers, James and John, sitting in the boat with their father Zebedee. I think Scripture many times is funny. This is one of the places that is funny. They were repairing their nets, and he called to them too. They immediately followed them, leaving their boat and their father behind in the boat. Hey! Get back here. We've got nets to fix. We've got to fish. And the brothers are like, nope. My kids would say that they yeeted out. But my kids would never want me to say out loud that they said that. So I won't. I won't say that they yeeted out. Yeah, I'll quit aura farming right now. Okay, there we go. I love that. Father's in there, but the call comes, and the boys bounced. We're going. We're going to go follow. Jesus called Peter while he was engaged in the fishing business. We understand this is a family business. That's probably true, but it is for sure Peter's business. And the call was not primarily about making money. The call was about a calling and a purpose. And we're going to talk about that here just in a few moments. But it was about something greater than simply making money. And I also want to say this. When we talk through these stories, you might find a calling on your life somewhere in here. And I expect and I hope that you will. Somewhere in this, God has called you to respond in a certain way. Not in the way that everyone responds, but in a way that you respond. I have never in my life been called out of a fishing boat to follow Jesus. Yet I have been called to follow Jesus. And so your story may fall in here somewhere. It is never too late to respond to God's call. When we think about God's calling, we often think about young people. Probably maybe the tail end of youth group or even younger. We certainly think about people who are in Bible college and they're responding to God's calling. But what happens if you are my age? What happens if you are older than me? What happens if you are a senior citizen? One of my favorite people is a woman named Martha, and she lives in Manitoba. And when I met her, she is deep into her 70s, and she would ask me about what has God called me to? And we were able to journey together, and I was able to pray with her. What she could never recognize was that her even asking the question was leading other people to ask the question. And her calling very well might be, and I kind of believe that it is, her calling was to get other people to ask that question about their lives. And that never quite settled on her, but it sure settled on me. And I would listen to her, and she would go, but I'm in my 70s, what do I do? And oh man, I don't know how you could do more. You're doing it, and this was great, and this is great, and it's not too late to respond to God's call. There is a pattern of discipleship. Discipleship is a church word that we use sometimes, and what it really means is mentorship, but it's like holy mentorship. You might have a sports mentor, you might have a business mentor, a financial mentor, you might have a marriage mentor, you might have all different sorts of mentors. This is a holy mentoring, this discipleship. And so in Peter's life, there is this pattern of discipleship. Jesus called, and Peter responded. And then Jesus provides. Now that's an interesting thing, isn't it? Jesus provides. One of the things that thwarts people all the time, and we hear this, and it breaks my heart, and I grieve out loud, and I'm talking about it on stage because don't do this. This is a warning. You will miss it if you do this. If God calls you to something, and you say, I cannot imagine affording to do life if I follow what God calls me to do, you need to buy a golden idol and place it on a place of prominence and bow down your face flat on the floor. That is who you worship. How can we see it any other way? Can you imagine if Peter was in the boat and Jesus said, come follow me, and Peter said, no, I can't imagine how we will financially do that. And so he goes back to the boat, continues to fish, and hears the stories of Jesus and the miracles and everything that happened in that whole great narrative. He sees that in his boat. Can you imagine that? Oh man, I was called and I didn't do it. I didn't go, but I have fish. I have fish. Jesus called, Peter responded, and Jesus provided. Sometimes what Jesus provided was fish to a fisherman. This is what Gwen has just read for us, and we're going to read this again in a moment. Peter trusted Jesus and stepped out in faith. And in Peter's story, stepping out in faith has dramatic results, doesn't it? Really, really dramatic results. Peter walked on water. This is one of the things I have heard people do gymnastics with this one, saying, well, there must have been a rock just barely under the surface. Okay, how do you figure the boat was floating on top of a rock? Well, you know, they were fishing. Oh, they were fishing on top of a rock. Bet they didn't catch anything. I don't know much about water, but I know everything there is to know about rocks. There is no fish on a rock, at least none you want to catch. There was water. It was deep. There was a boat floating in it. There was people in the boat. There was a storm. It was a big storm. It was a scary storm. This is in the middle of the night when fishermen fish. And Jesus walks out to Peter, and Peter sees Jesus coming, trusts Jesus, steps out of the boat, is walking on water, and gets scared. You ever seen a little kid when they're learning to ride a bike, and they're pedaling, and it's all good, and then they get scared? And the bike falls over, and they fall over with the bike. And then everybody has a popsicle. That's how it goes. Peter gets scared. And he begins to sink. And Jesus reaches out his hand to Peter, and Peter is back on the water, not in the water, on the water, and Jesus says to Peter, why did you quit trusting me? Why did you take your eyes off me? I have called you. I have equipped you. I have shown you. Keep your eyes on me. And Peter walks on water. And then Peter performs miracles through the power of God. Peter performs miracles. It is not Peter's power. I'm not saying that. And if you step out in your calling, it is not that you get superpower. One of the things that I battle against, and I battle against it in this church, is people think I have special sauce that I can get to Jesus in a different way than you can. You are wrong. You are wrong. You can get to Jesus in the same way I can. My prayer to Jesus is not more intense than your prayer to Jesus. My prayer to Jesus is simply my prayer to Jesus. And so when people come and they run to the church and they say, would the pastor pray? Because when the pastor prays, boy, then Jesus must. No. You can pray. And you can ask. And you can listen. Peter performs miracles through the power of God. Here's the next. We're going to look down into the book of Luke chapter 5. This is the same story, but there's something different here. Listen to this. I love this. This is a nuance. You'll miss this. Don't you wish you knew this 10 years ago? If you can incorporate these three things, this will change your life. One day, as Jesus was preaching on the shore of the Sea of Galilee, a great crowd pressed in on him to listen to the words of God. How come everyone always sits at the back when I preach? When Jesus preached, they're up right there. They smell their breath. The question for a different time. Jesus noticed two empty boats at the water's edge. For the fishermen, for the who? You know, I just said it and it's written there. The who? The fishermen. What did they do? That's how they got the name. The fishermen had left them and were washing their nets. Stepping into one of the boats, Jesus asked Simon, that would be Simon Peter, its owner, to push it out into the water. Peter didn't sell the boat. Peter still owns the boat. They're washing their nets. They have just been fishing. It's daytime now. Peter is exhausted because he's been up all night with the guys fishing. So they asked Simon Peter, its owner, to push it out into the water. So he sat in the boat and taught the crowds from there. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon Peter, now go out where it's deeper and let down your nets to catch some fish. Oh, listen closely, Rosewood. There is a point in here you need to know this. The fishermen know where the fish are. They have been to where the fish are. They have done the most obvious thing. It's worked 1,000 times before. On this night it didn't work. Sometimes that just happens. Sometimes there's no fish. But they have tried, and they have tried all night, and they have been good fishermen. They just don't have much fish. Now it's sleeping time. We got to go sleep so that we can fish more. And Jesus says to them, and I'm going to put my words on this, but this is true. Jesus says to them in so many words, go to where the fish aren't. Go to where the most seasoned fishermen will not go because there's no fish. That's why they don't go there. Go there and put down your nets. Now, Simon Peter, he's a little crusty this morning. Okay, late night. You ever been a little crusty in the morning? Anybody? I have. And he says, Master, Simon replies, we worked hard all night last night and we didn't catch a thing. But if you say so, I will let my nets down. That is not fishing. That's worship. That's stepping out and calling. By the way, it makes no fishing sense at all. Cast your lure upon these stones. Why would you do that? There's no fish there. They're professional fishermen. This is all they do. Well, they follow Jesus and they do this. We worked hard all night last night and we didn't catch a thing. But if you say so, I will let the nets down again. And this time, their nets were so full of fish that they began to tear, and they shouted for their partners to get in the boat. Get in the boat. Get in the boat. And come on out here, and we load, and we got fish. People are going to eat. We're going to be able to sell the fish, and then we're going to eat. Here's the point. The point was not that Jesus was a better fisherman. Jesus came from a family of carpenters. What do they know about fish? They know how to eat fish. It's not a question of going to the obvious. It is a question of, where's God working? Sometimes it's not obvious. Sometimes, what is your calling? I don't know why it's my calling, but I feel like I should go to work today. I go to work every day, but I feel like I should go to work today. It's different. I feel like I should coach soccer. I don't know anything about soccer, but there's something that says I should learn about soccer and I should go coach soccer. I feel like I should stand up at church and go flag. It's interesting, isn't it? I know for sure that there's people in here every Sunday that wrestle with, I think I should go flag. But people like me don't go flag. People like them go flag, but people like me don't flag. Well, people like this don't fish there. Where's God at work? Once this sermon is done, I will jump in my car and I will rush to the racetrack. I can only tell you God is at work there. I cannot tell you why, and I cannot give you measurable matrix, but I'm telling you, God is at work there. I've heard of people who joined stamp collecting clubs because God has called them to do it. I think that's tremendous. I didn't know that there was stamp collecting clubs, genuinely. They went and did it. There's this one guy, it was so good. He's a psychologist. And he came to the church. It's not this church, it was a different church. And he said, I think I am called to read books and give bagels to kids who we go on a bike ride. It's like, that's very specific. You're good to read books, eat bagels, and go on bike rides. So he started a He started a program called Books, Bikes, and Bagels. And he went and he fed kids bagels at the school, and he read books to them, and then they all went on a bike ride. And then a business in town that sold bikes said to him, we would like to donate as many bikes as you have kids, provided the kids can't afford a bike. Okay, well, how are we going to do that? Well, all those kids need to come to the church where they will get a bike. And it happened. And we watched it happen. It was this stepping out in faith. I could live for 1,000 years. I would never think of that program. It's too haphazard. I mean, we eat fish and fly kites and look for, Swedish people. But if that's the calling, it is outside of the norm, and to obey the calling, to obey Jesus in the calling, is an act of worship. Don't limit yourself to, if I respond to a calling, I have to become a pastor. Very few people have to become pastors. I mean, just mathematically speaking. But there is a calling on your life. And you are not too engaged. You are not too hemmed in. You are not too old. You are not too young. You are not too busy, and you are also not too sinful. You see, Peter's growth, he received some of the best teaching possible directly from Jesus, like straight from the guy. And how compelling is watching miracles and people coming back from the dead and Jesus saying some things that the world's never heard that before. Just the best teacher there was. Peter experienced correction and discipline. I need to pause here also. Correction and discipline after the training. This is how this often works. It is certainly true in my life. If we step out in calling, oftentimes, and certainly in Peter's life, it meant first he must learn. Everybody wants to be the expert, but very few people want to submit to those in authority over them. Very few people want to go to school, be discipled, sit and learn for a long time, be tested on what they've learned, see if what they think stand up to the rigors of those wiser than them. Many of you in here are teachers on some level, and I honor you and respect you and thank you, and we need you. My goodness, we need you. And there is a demographic of people in here that say, the thing I will not do is learn. I will teach. I will demand that you learn, but I will not learn. When I submitted to my calling, it meant I had to do some really, really hard things that were going to cost a lot of money and take a lot of time. And I'm going to fast forward right to the end. Jesus provided in the weirdest ways. Mandy and I, we could tell you stories. We tell each other these stories because it's God's goodness. He provided. He provided. By the way, if you were worried about income, I'm only going to tell you this. I don't know what hunger tastes like. I don't know what it is to be cold. I don't see how more money would change that. Peter experienced correction and discipline. Correction leads to spiritual development and maturity. It does. Sitting there together and going, oh, you read that and you think it means this. That's interesting. Did you know that this is the context of it? Did you know that this is what else is going on and it might mean that? I love the story of loaves and fishes. How many people were fed in loaves and fishes? Call it out. Sure. That's just the men. That's just the men. That's not the number. That's just the number of men. Go back and reread the story. There is also women and children. That's context. They aren't counted. Only the men are counted. We would never let that happen now. Maybe we would let that happen now, and we shouldn't. But it happened then. It matters. If you read the story and it doesn't get put under the rigor of additional learning and correction, and sometimes we teach the wrong thing. Now listen to this. Calling does not bow under sin. Now you can make yourself unsuitable. You can do the sort of things that will mean people will not come to you, will not listen to you, will sever relationship with you. Oh, you certainly can do that. But calling does not bow to sin, it bows to Jesus. Peter denied Jesus. Now, you know this story. Jesus is in the process of being tried and accused and crucified and dead and buried. And a young girl comes to Peter and says, hey, you're one of those Jesus people, aren't you? In the context of this, don't miss this. This is how this works. When someone challenges the king, first you kill the person, then you kill the followers, then the king is safe. This is not a one-time story. This is all through history. This is what's happening. And a girl says, hey, you're one of those Jesus people. And Peter says, no. And there's a back and forth. And finally, Peter says, I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm here for the show. Peter denies Jesus. Then Jesus comes back from the dead and goes to Peter and restores him. Gives him forgiveness. And on the tail of the forgiveness, in the same sentence, is again the calling, the same calling from, I will teach you to fish for people. He then says, if you love me, then love my people. It's the same calling. What if Peter was still in the boat? Fishing. Jesus calls Peter, and Peter becomes a worshiper of God. How? Sometimes through fishing. Sometimes through speaking. Sometimes through following. Sometimes for yelling at his buddies to go get the boat. Worshipful. We have to be so careful that we don't try to wedge God into what we're comfortable with. Sometimes he tells you to go to the rocks and fish. Sometimes he tells you to get out of the boat where you will sink, except you won't sink because it's Jesus. Sometimes he says, you have to spend your entire career reading really difficult stuff, and you're dyslexic. When I talk about dyslexia, this is an interesting thing. It came out of last week's sermon where I talked a bit about dyslexia. Some of you need to understand, I am not embarrassed by that at all. I use it as an illustration the same way I say I have two hands. It is interesting that it causes you embarrassment. Doesn't cause me any. God made me this way. Take it up with him. And it's so good because, like, you tell me how to spell stuff, I disagree with you. I have 5 or 6 or 10 or 100 different ways, and you stand in the back and go, that's not how you spell it. Sure as thunder is. Just did it. I can prove it to you. I hear you, Elizabeth. Jesus calls Peter, and Peter becomes a worshiper. Hey, do your kids have a calling? Parents, don't you dare get in front of that. Don't you dare. Don't you do it. Don't you dare. Don't you dare get in front of God's calling. And don't you dare do it for a golden idol. Don't you do it. Do you have a calling? You are not too broken. You are not too sinful. You are not too old. Hey, youth, you're nowhere near too young. I promise. Not at all. Is your life too much of a mess right now? Are you estranged from someone? Are you what? Do you have a calling? Step out of the boat. Step out of the boat onto the shore. Step out of the boat into the water. Step out of the boat onto the rocks, whatever it is. Step out of the boat. Nobody said sell the boat. Said step out. Jesus didn't walk on water and say to Peter, if you didn't own the boat, you wouldn't be in this mess. He said step out of the boat. Do your kids have a calling? Do you have a calling? Do you hear the call of God? Have you asked? Have you asked and listened? Have you brought other people into that saying, will you ask with me? What is the calling on my life? Have you responded to the thing inside you that says, I think I'm supposed to flag? I can't sing. I'm no good at singing. I don't want to preach. I don't know how to do tech, but I think I'm supposed to flag. Hey, men, I'm talking to you. Flagging is not gendered. Just isn't. Warriors flagged. For those of you that respond to such things, they did. That's how you knew where the army was. Obedience to God is never too late. Just isn't. I love it in the scriptures when Paul, as the worship team comes up, when Paul says, people say to Paul, you're rotten to the core. You're like a bad banana. That's not actually what they said, but it's what they said. And he says, you think I'm bad? I'm so bad you couldn't make a muffin out of me. I'm bad. That's how bad I am. But Jesus.
Follow God's calling. You'll go on an adventure, and God will provide. Thank you this morning to the worship team and for the message this morning. I want to invite you to join us next week because Pastor Joanna is going to speak on the fourfold gospel, and looking forward to that. Prayer team will be available after the service. Please come and sit on the front row, and one of our team would love to pray with you. And our blessing this morning comes from Romans 15:13. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. Go in peace.